Today is Tuesday, March 16, and welcome to the Quality of Life and Public Safety Committee. The members of this committee is Majority Leader TJ Clark, who's a co-chair, myself, Council President Molly Rosado, Councilman John Gale, and Councilman Joshua Mickham. Today, we will start with the appointment to the CPRB board, the Civilian Police Review Board. But prior to starting that, I just want to let everyone know that the Quality of Life and Public Safety Committee will be broadcasting on HPA-TV, which is a Hartford Public Access Television, on Comcast and Frontier Channel 96, and Channel 6032, HPA-TV Facebook page, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon TV app, and YouTube. That was the mouthful. So I'd like to welcome Ms. Deborah Davis, who is the appointment from Mayor Bronin to the Civilian Police Review Board. Welcome, Ms. Davis.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I don't see you. Let me see what I can do here first. Okay. So, Ms. Davis, can you tell us about yourself and your interest to get on the Civilian Police Review Board?
Yes. So I have been a resident of Hartford for over 21 years, and I have worked in the community with several proactive groups, one specifically, Mothers United Against Violence. We have worked with the community. We have worked with the police department. We've worked with several entities throughout the city, and we have engaged almost at every level. So when I did get that request, I was very interested and motivated by the fact that I could only be an asset to what the board wanted to accomplish. And so that's my interest in becoming a part of the board.
Okay, and I also like to welcome Councilwoman Shirley Surgeon, who's on the line here. So, any questions from my colleagues? Councilman Mickham?
Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Davis, nice to meet you, sort of.
Yeah.
You said that in that group that you had worked at every level, including working with the police department. Can you talk a little bit about how comfortable you would feel being in a position of perhaps criticizing the police department, or having a hand in, I don't want to say punishing, but being adverse at times, right? Being in the job of overseeing the police department. How do those things fit together?
So I believe in every aspect of the work that I've done. We have been pretty much both critical and been able to keep a balanced perspective, because if you're given a specific scenario and then you're also waiting until an investigation plays itself out, you want to make sure that you're comfortable in making any kind of judgmental statements. And so that has been our motto. That has been, that's what we have carried with us throughout this work. I've basically been able to, both work with community, making certain that they also are aware of some of the most important parts of a police officer's position, and so and vice versa. So the balance is really important for me, and I know that I can be just as objective for this type of board and this type of position.
Thanks.
I also like to welcome our Council President Molly Rosado and Councilman Nick LeBron, who joined us now. Any other questions from council members? Okay, so I have a couple. So what is your experience as far as working with the police directly?
Okay, so in another city, I actually worked with the police department. I worked for a police department, but I've also interacted with regards to the work that we do here in the city of Hartford. So our experience specifically is making certain that when we do have events and when we do vigils, because that's part of the work that we do, we make certain that our folks are also protected and that the police officers are there just to be certain and make certain that balance in terms of civility is kept. I have also been on the other side of that in terms of actually helping to write standard operating procedures. I've also taught communications 101, how to communicate through 911 with our 911 operators. And so I've had pretty much an extended in terms of experience and in terms of developing relationships as well throughout on both sides, both the community and the police department. But I know how important it is because now that community policing is just as important for our next generations and generations to come going forward, we certainly do want to make sure that we can impart some of those ideals that I think that really make sense as well.
Okay, thank you. I also want to add that, you know, it seems that being on the Civilian Police Review Board, one of the challenges is the time that it takes up from a person's life. And, you know, we always look for, you know, the right person, you know, intellectually, you know, spiritually, but also, you know, dedicated. And it sounds to me like you're a very dedicated person. Do you have the time? Because, you know, I mean, I would say hundreds of files. I do know that we have several folks who joined, but when they realize the time consumption, they resign. Is one of the reasons. So,
well, I believe that once I make the commitment, I would like to stay with that commitment. I think that's very important. So I certainly have, you know, talked to our team, and certainly everyone is aware of the kind of work that this entails. So we would be comfortable. I would be comfortable with that.
That would be great. Can we entertain a motion?
I'd like
Council President?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to send this appointment back to council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made, properly second. Is there any further discussion?
I don't have a discussion. I just want to thank Deborah Davis for everything that you do and your constant dedication and passion for the city of Hartford. And I personally want to thank you for accepting this appointment to be a member of the Civilian Police Review Board. I know that you're going to be a great asset, and I'm looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Councilman Gale?
And I just want to say hi to Deborah Davis. Hi.
Oh. Hi, Councilman Gale. How are you?
I'm good. Long time no see.
I know.
And
I know. Yes.
And I'd like to echo the sentiments from Council President. I really appreciate that you're willing to dedicate yourself to this committee. It's very important, as you said, especially for the future generation.
Yes.
You know, I think is one of the toughest committee to be on. And if you have any questions or need support, I think I speak for myself and for the council. Our doors are open.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I appreciate the extension of the support. I know that's going to be very important. Thank you so much.
Any other council member like to make a statement or comment? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against?
Aye.
Abstain? Pass. We'll go to council favorably. Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Mr. Chairman, you got to give us a little time to get on the mute button nowadays.
Okay.
I can't say my eyes that fast.
Okay, no problem.
Thank
Okay,
you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right,
Okay.
we're gonna,
Want me to leave?
yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, take care. Have a good night. All right, we're going to move on to item number 4, which is HPD representation and CompStat. So we will be, I believe it's Lieutenant Lee, you're going to be showing us the presentation?
Yes, sir. If you don't mind, I'm going to start a screen share if all goes
Absolutely.
well. Is that visible to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. The beginning section is going to be regarding the organizational climate study and Chief Howell.
Good evening, everyone, council members and guests. Can everyone hear me? Thumbs up, okay. Okay, so I wanted to present to you the organizational climate study mid-year report. As you can see, there will be a PowerPoint presentation in there. As you all may know, in the summer of 2019, researchers from Westfield State University and University of Rhode Island began an assessment of the work environment and departmental culture of the Hartford Police Department. In collecting data, they looked at written surveys, in-person interviews, and administrative and case data. At the end of their study, they made 74 recommendations. And each recommendation was assigned to a prospective area within the department. As you can see, this pie chart represents the 74 recommendations. I'm going to address the 13, where is that, the blue area, 13 already within the Hartford Police Department operations. So those 13 were already within our operations when they conducted the study. Also, the 17 I will address, which are the implementations that we did, which is the red area. And lastly, the four outstanding outside Hartford Police Department controls. So the purple area I will be addressing. And I'm sorry, if anyone has any questions during the presentation, please feel free to interrupt me. The slides, I have 14 slides, so I want to get through it. But certainly I will entertain any questions. Next slide, please. So the 13 recommendations that were already within the Hartford Police Department operations. These 5 here out of 13 came out of the recruitment unit, and Lieutenant Rodriguez Varez, I'm sorry, I get the names confused.
Rodriguez
Velez, I'm sorry, thank you. She's in charge of that unit, which is the recruitment unit coming out of the Career Development Division. These things were already implemented. Hosting living room conversations. She has done a great job with this. She has gone to the YMCA. She has gone to barbershops, the Urban League, Blue Hills Civic Associations. She's pretty much everywhere. I was actually impressed when I saw the things that she has done. Hosting recruitment sessions to address concerns of women, minorities, and Hartford residents. We actually have one scheduled for this Friday, the 19th at 6 p.m. at the police department. That information is on Instagram at Hartford Police CT_recruitment. That is, again, women's only regarding recruitment. Develop brochures and documents to demystify the police academy experience. We updated our recruitment website to include items as such so that we can address demystifying certain things about the police academy, and we've updated our brochures and so forth, and they're readily available to people who are interested in the job. Host community focus groups centered on police recruitment strategies and messaging. Again, this is part of the outreach goal, and she's done a wonderful job with that. Continue to hold physical fitness sessions. We haven't been able to do that because of COVID, but as of yesterday, we just started back, and she will be doing that 3 times a week. So if anyone knows the lieutenant, she's really physically fit. She's into physical fitness, and she, again, I can't stop complimenting her on the job she's doing with that. Recommendations were already within Hartford Police Department operations. Again, this is continuation.
I'm sorry, can I jump in? I don't know. I would have just raised my hands, but I don't know if you can see.
Yeah, I'm a little new at this too, with this.
No, it's all good. So I guess my question is, if there were recommendations from the assessment, and those recommendations were things that were already within HPD operations, does that mean just keep doing these things? Or, I mean, if they're making the recommendations that suggest that there's a need for some change, or you follow what I'm saying? Like if it's already happening, but it caused a recommendation, does it mean something needs to change?
No, I totally, yeah, no, it totally makes sense.
So let me, AC, it's Chief Thody. Sorry, I think Councilman Michton, before you were on, I explained that unfortunately I'm only going to be on by audio because I've got a conflict here, but that was a conversation that I had with the researchers as we were going through the final recommendations with them, and the way that they did the assessment was basically outside of what the department is already doing. So they did the assessment based on officer perception and based on like cold recommendations. And they basically told us that we would respond to those recommendations the way that we had if we had programs or procedures in place, that would basically be our response. And we have already scheduled a 1-year look with the researchers as far as where we are in implementation. So essentially the way they explained it to us is instead of us getting into a back and forth with the researchers during the research about what we already do and how we can hone it, they gave us just a cold assessment, and it was up to us to kind of look at those recommendations and decide if we had things already implemented or needed to implement them, and how we were going to do that. And we've continued to work with them specifically individually through the process to make sure that we're not misinterpreting anything that they're saying or suggesting. So that was the way that they've done this research in the past, and that was the way that they wanted us to do it, where we didn't really have an opportunity during the process to answer to some of the recommendations. So they were just giving us raw recommendations. Whether we did it or not was something that was basically left to us in a response. So we will continue to look at what we're doing ongoing and what we could do to improve in those areas. But from a baseline perspective, in implementation of 74 recommendations, our approach, and this was agreed upon with the researchers, was to basically provide the feedback if we felt we were doing something, the areas where we weren't doing anything, address those, and then kind of build from there. This is intended to be an ongoing thing. I don't want this to be just some research project that's thrown away in 6 months or a year. This has been
Chief, are you still on?
In certain areas, and that will give them an opportunity to kind of see where we are, what we have implemented, if there needs to be additional implementation or not. So that was the plan, I guess, for lack of a better term.
So, and for the part that he cut out, I believe he's referring to the 1-year review. Chief, you cut out for a moment in that last part.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. So that in that 1-year review, we will almost do another assessment, a reassessment of where we are in the areas where we think we meet it, where we think we meet the recommendations, areas where we can improve, areas where we're strong, areas where we're weak. And, I would continue beyond that year to make sure that we're, that we're doing the right things. The researchers have been good about giving us feedback regarding things that pop up that they know are related to the cultural assessment. They've given us several training opportunities, and they've been a great partner in implementing these things. So that was the plan as they laid it out to us. So that's the way we're following it.
So I have a question, Chief. So is it safe to say that, and I'm trying to understand it completely. So with this study, they're well aware of the accomplishments that HPD has done, but they did not include it in the study. So what they did was take and look at HPD and just encompass basically all the levels and functions and put it into one packet. And then from there, I mean, what do they expect HPD to do? I mean, go reach back to them and say, listen, this is what we're doing. Can you, change the study? I mean, how does that work?
No, that's exactly why I think they didn't want to do it in an interactive process. They were an independent research group that came in to assess the strengths and weaknesses of the department. So we just went through recruitment. So for example, they looked at our recruitment, our retention, our numbers, and they said, you lose X number of candidates in the physical agility test. So you should make sure, the recommendation as a result of that was to implement programs that helped better prepare people for physical agility, nutrition programs, physical fitness testing, assistance in that area, like the 3 times a week that Marisol Rodriguez-Velez is doing. They did not want, as part of the process, they didn't want that to be an interactive back and forth process with the administration where they come to us and say, you should do this. And we come to them and say, oh, well, we already do that, and this is why. They were making, that I think that would create too much of a relationship or a back and forth with the administration and the people that are supposed to be doing an independent assessment. So when I approached them, at the end of this, when they gave me the, basically the findings, and I said, hey, some of these issues, we're doing some things proactively to deal with some of these issues that you've identified. They said, well, that's great. So you can, in your response, basically in how you digest this cultural analysis, you can document those things. And you can look to see if there's areas where you as a department want to put more focus or improve. And they said that they'd be willing to help us do that. It was very intentional to not have this a back and forth interactive process. This was a assessment. They did not have full knowledge of everything that we do as a department. In as far as recruitment goes, as far as retention goes, as far as any of these categories go, they were doing an independent, very cold, outside look at what the strengths and weaknesses were, and then made recommendations of the areas where we need to improve. And if you look at the assessment, beyond the 74 recommendations, they also looked at areas where they thought we were doing well. That is often lost in these presentations. So I am not a researcher, and that is the way the researchers wanted to do this, and basically said that's the way we're going to do it. So we have had opportunities to go back and forth with the researchers over the last few months. To say, hey, we got a question on this, or is there something specific you were looking for here? And they've been good, but I think prior to the final report coming out, they wanted to make sure this was an independent look and that there wasn't this back and forth with the administration or this relationship with the administration. Like I said, it is my intention, and I have the researchers have agreed to do a 1-year look. It took a year to go in and dig all this stuff up. And we wanted about a year, and they thought it was fair to give us about a year to implement these things and to make some cultural changes in the department. And we're going to sit down and I don't think we're going to redo this entire thing in a year, but we're certainly going to take the areas that we were lowest, where we scored lowest, areas where we needed the most improvement, and go over them again with the researchers.
Okay, thank you, Chief. I just want to let my council members know that I'm limited. My screen is limited due to the presentation. So if you have any questions, just you take the floor. You can speak up.
All right, I'm going to do it again then, Chairman,
Okay.
if I could. Just to follow up on that, Chief, I feel like maybe all of that was very useful explanation. The only part that I'm still left a little confused about is this, that if they did an assessment where they didn't consult with the department a whole bunch, what are you doing now, what are you not doing? They just sort of looked at it and said, here's what we think needs improvement. And some of the things that they say needed improvement, the response of the department is, that's a thing we're already doing. That, I guess my question then is, if the department is already doing a thing and an outside look says you need to do a thing that the department is doing, that suggests to me that the way the department is doing the thing isn't working, or isn't working as well as it could. So that was my original question, is, are these things that were already within operations, are they being changed or ramped up or reassessed, given that they were already in place and they didn't prevent the researchers from saying you need to do this better?
It could mean that, or it could mean that we are doing everything that we can and we're getting the most out of that process. One thing we did do is look around at other places to find out what the challenges are that law enforcement is seeing with candidates, for example, in recruitment. And there are a lot of departments out there that have substantially higher failure rates at the physical agility. They're not doing the things that we're doing. So we may have reached a place where where we've done quite a bit, or we've done all that we can do, and we still might not be getting the level of the hopeful level of passage that we've been looking for in the area of physical agility. There just may not be people out there that are passing that. There's within each one of these, and this is why I think, when I talked to Councilman Sanchez about, doing the presentation on these, is, a comprehensive report is going to be generated about this report. And inside of that, lowering the entry standard for the physical assessment from a 40th percentile to a 30th percentile, and then getting people into the process and then working with them in that process to get them from the 30th percentile Cooper standard up to the 40, once we have a captive audience, is something that nobody else is doing. So there's a lot of those things that we are doing, but again, we have 74 recommendations to implement. And I think part of saying, these are things that were either done or substantially done, allows us to focus on the areas that are lower or that we need more improvement. You will see as the presentation goes on, there are areas that we were deficient in, at a significant rate, where we had to go and change operations and change things. And even in some of the smaller areas, we're making tweaks and we're saying, well, what else can we do here? Or what else can we do there? But this is a summation of where we are a few months into this program. So I don't think, I think we have to be careful, looking for, nothing in this report is done to the level of completeness that anyone expects us to be at, especially just a few months in.
I take your point, Chief, and the prioritizing. I appreciate that point. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so, and before you continue, AC Howell, if you could send the entire council a copy of this presentation. You have the floor, AC Howell.
Thank you very much. Sure. Okay, so continuing, thank you, Chief, for that. Conduct exit interviews of applicants. We do that. We actually do a great job, I think, of when a candidate decides they don't want to continue, we'll contact them and find out, ask them, well, what's the problem? What's the barrier? How can we assist you? If it's a physical issue, we'll give them options to for these training sessions that the lieutenant holds. There may be a whole range of things that would create barriers, filling out the paperwork and so forth. We would contact them and help them fill out the paperwork. Whichever way we can help them to make to onboard them into the process, we do it. The number 3, 4, and 5 here are all part of the same program, which is the shadowing program we have here. I think you probably all are familiar with it. What it is it allows for officers, patrol officers, to work with detectives, seasoned detectives, for a 90-day period, so that they can gain experience. They can. It's almost like interviewing for the job, right? To see if they like the job. They'll acquire skills, a skill set that they can also bring back to the street and use that as a police officer to write police reports better, to do better investigations and so forth. So we have that. We do have that. Generally, it's done when it's department needs. And what we'll do is we'll post the position, and they'll submit an application and conduct an interview. So these are recommendations that were already within, so this is a continuation. One recommendation number 1 involved the accreditation and planning. Command staff should seek officer input and feedback before and after policy implementation. We do that. We've done that with the performance appraisals, ballistic vests, surveys. We've done working groups and so forth. The second one here, 2 recommendations fell into the chief of police office, the office of the chief of the police. Develop long-term strategies to make officers' benefits, salaries more competitive. So now this one here is obviously it's outside. It's partial, right? So this is something the Hartford Police Union and the city negotiates, but we work with the city and the union to do research and see if we're competitive with other departments. So we've done that, continue to emphasize the values of procedural justice policing annually or biannually. Excuse me. Now this one here, the entire department went through a fair and impartial policing training a while back. It's also built into our in-service training. It's an important element to our culture, especially now during these times. And we actually, in May of this year, we will be undergoing more training for the entire department, which will encompass the supervisors getting leadership training and officers getting some procedural justice training in those areas of procedural justice and human relations, community relations, respect of the public, and many other areas. We've developed a program we're developing right now, and we're going to implement at the end of April or the beginning of May. So stay tuned for that. The next recommendation, called for team building opportunities to be developed. So this is the Hartford Police Union and fraternity organizations, fraternal organizations. They do a good job at team building, and they have events and so forth. But of course, because of COVID, they're limited. Okay, so now these are the recommendations that we received and we implemented. There's 17 of these. 5 pertain to the training division. So supervisory leadership, mentoring, training. So many of the supervisors, approximately 30 to 40%, went through LEADA training. They went to supervisory specific critical incident management training. The second one, excuse me, increasing cultural competency. Excuse me, that was a 2-hour mandatory training block with a test. And the third one is appropriate workplace behavior, sexual harassment awareness training. But that was, I believe it was administered by city HR. The next 7 recommendations fell under the office of the chief. The first 2 here, let's see. Okay, so enhance mechanisms to deliver updates and new information to employees. So Chief Doty started what is called duty command rotation, where he will have command staff, captain and above, actually captains and deputy chiefs will spend 1 week, Tuesday through Saturday, on B squad, which is the evening squad. And during that time, they will go to roll calls, they will give information to officers, they will solicit information. So that has been working out. That rotates among the command staff. Let's see, number 3. And directing additional administrative and peer support resources towards officers targeted on social media, online outlets. So we have a specific officer we assigned who handles this. She's readily available to answer phone calls, and sometimes she reaches out to officers who may have any issues in these matters. The second 2, online, open lines of communication with the Hartford Guardians and Hispanic Officers Association. And the next one, provide support for the Power Women's Organization. Chief Doty meets with them quarterly. So we've implemented that. It almost seems like it's more than quarterly, because I see them up in the chief's office quite often discussing issues, but it has at least been quarterly. The next one, streamline reporting process for broken computers and supply shortages. We have dedicated a particular email account. So if an officer has a problem, they can actually email on that with that email address, and IT will pick it up and hopefully resolve the matter. The next one, enhance officers' feedback opportunities for uniform committee. So the chief has recently authorized, and the officers are very happy with this, shorts for private duty jobs. Because the officers have complained about the heat and with the long pants and so forth. So they're very happy about that. We solicit input from them, and that's one of the things that they really wanted. So they got it. This next slide here, recommendations, is a continuation. The researchers suggested that recruitment materials highlight community services aspects. Again, we have materials and we've updated our recruitment website to include that. The next one, recommendations, was implemented by planning and accreditation. Examine surrounding salary and benefit packets. So I don't have the information in front of me, but we did look at these departments that you see up here. So it's our department, Newington, Rocky Hill, East Hartford, Weathersfield, and Windsor. And we looked at the compensation package and so forth. As I understand it, there were 7 areas. I'm sorry, I don't have it on me right now, but what I was told is that our department falls short of many of these departments, and that is one of the information that we have during our exit interviews, that officers have issue with pay and benefits and so forth. So that's something we are closely keeping track of, but I'm sure everyone knows about that. And hopefully we can stop the bleeding with these cops leaving, jumping ship to go to other departments that pay better, more benefits and so forth. The next recommendation was implemented by internal investigations. IA should assess the working relationship between parties involved in internal complaints. So this here is, so if there's a complaint between an officer against another officer supervisor, we actively make sure that the cops are not working together. So we're doing a better job at that now. So if someone makes a complaint, Officer A against Officer B, and they're on the same shift, we make accommodations to take one off to another assignment or something along those lines, so that they don't have to work with each other while the investigation is going through. The next page. So these 2 recommendations come out of the career development. This was an awesome recommendation, and we applied it. This was a mentorship program. We applied it in 2020 with the first class, where we took volunteers from the street, cops who wanted to mentor recruits. And we had several who wanted to do it. We paired them up with recruits, and they became their mentor. So if a recruit, as they navigate through the department, the recruit can call their mentor and ask, hey, if I'm looking for another assignment, how do I do this? Could you help me out, and so forth? So we've implemented that, and that seems to be working really well. Okay, the next slide. Okay, recommendations outside of Hartford PD control. Okay, so these things are outside our control. This is the assessment center testing for supervisors. This is handled by HR, city HR. Sexual harassment policies, HR. External review of Hartford Police Department harassment training. That's implemented by HR. And the last one is investigations into potential misconduct should not be influenced by political pressure or media attention. So that, of course, is outside of our control. The next slide, we're getting there. We're on page 12. We have 2 more to go. Recommendations partially outside of Hartford Police Department's control. So I said the previous slide, we were outside. They were outside of our control. But these 4 are also somewhat outside of our control, but we have partial input. So we have salaries and benefit packages, so we research, like I said, we research, and we're able to give it to the city, the research that we have done to help them see where we should be. Promotional policy, we can provide input. Salary and benefits, again, we want to remain competitive. We've researched it, so we have the information available. And so we work with the Hartford Union police union and the city on these issues. But again, it's only partial control that we have over them. And the next page is recommendations partially outside of Hartford PD control, which continues. The CAD system that we're getting, the RMS, records management system. As you all know, this is fire, police, and emergency services, telecommunications. So this is coming along well. This is projected to be deployed in May of 2021. So we're working with our colleagues here to try to get this implemented by May 2021, which is another 2 months. And this last one here, this is the last one, is review training and time off procedures to reduce barriers to training and expand career development. So when I look at this, when the researchers came in, there's a perception issue the officers have that there were barriers to training, and then there's the reality. Because when we looked at the reality, we did research on it over the past 3 years. 92.8% of training requests were approved. And that's amazing. You know that I've been to previous departments. This is a high rate for the Hartford Police Department. So when I saw that, I was pretty impressed. So we are training our people. We give them the tools necessary to police the city in the best way possible. The next slide, Lieutenant. Okay, so that's basically the presentation. Again, it's 74 recommendations. We are diligently working on these recommendations. It's not an easy task, but it's a task we're willing to do to make this department a better department so we can serve our community better. Again, the department will continue to work on these, and we will update probably in another 6 months. We'll update you on our progress. So are there any questions?
Yes, AC Howell, thank you for that presentation. I'd like to start off with my first question, which is, once HPD received this study for the consultant, and after you guys, mulled it over, what was the written response? This is a presentation, but I would like to see, and if you can, send a copy of the written response to the consultant for all the recommendation that was specified.
So I think we have, Lieutenant Lee, we have a nice written response, correct?
Yeah, that's what I spoke about earlier, Councilman Sanchez, is that the written response to the consultants would be a comprehensive response at the 1 year mark. We have an opportunity now over the course of the first year to implement and digest and try to get as much done as we can to improve the climate of the department. We would not provide a written response to that until the 1 year mark. We have notes, we have this PowerPoint. We have a running spreadsheet. Chief Howell is spearheading it, where we keep track of what's assigned to who and progress reports and things like that. But, it would be difficult to do a comprehensive response report, as we're still going through. If you look, there's a few of these that we haven't even touched upon yet to really know, whether we're doing things, whether we're not doing things. That's a little bit a written response report would be a little premature before we have at least some opportunity, and we've landed on the 1 year mark to do implementation and assessment of exactly what they found.
Okay, so there is no initial response, but then is there a partial initial response for what we're already implementing?
I mean, you're getting the presentation of
Okay,
what
so
we're
that
doing
is
right now. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's as close to, written response as you're going to get. Like I said, other than the spreadsheet, which is really the Bible that, tracks who's assigned to what divisions are assigned to make what improvements, the individual people. It was basically divvied up between the 4 captains and the 2 assistant chiefs, and then planning and accreditation as a division, Assistant Chief Medina as the operations chief, and then now Assistant Chief Howell kind of has control over the whole project. That's how it's assigned out. There's definitely the spreadsheet and the notes, but as far as a written response, it's a little early to have that big of a document completed.
Okay, I won't ask you to repeat it because I just logged back in. I just lost everyone. AC Howell, can you take the presentation down and so that I can see everyone on the screen? Okay, thank you. And then, for the sake of time, just maybe 1 or 2 questions from my colleagues, if there's any.
I just, through you, Chair, I just have a comment to AC Howell. Thank you for that presentation and from the input from Chief Doty. It was very helpful. Looking forward to seeing that timeline as you progress. So you said probably in 6 months we would get another update?
Yeah, certainly we would want to do a 6-month update.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so I would like to bypass the ComStat for the sake of time. If you can email the ComStat to all council members. I think it was already done, but just in case. Thank you, AC Howell, for that presentation. Again, I appreciate it. And I see you're getting accustomed to joining us on Zoom now, right?
Yeah, I'm getting the hang of it. Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to, let me see here. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the Hartford Fire Department with Chief Freeman or his representative designated.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman, and good evening, sirs and ma'ams. I am joined here by my Assistant Chief Operations, Rodney Barco, and with your permission, sir, I'd like to go ahead and start our presentation for this month.
You have the floor.
Thank you. All right, can everyone see the presentation okay?
We can, Chief.
Okay. So starting off with COVID-19, the department as well as the city is still doing great in regards to our personal protective equipment. We have no needs at this moment. We are still able to satisfy all requests for PPE to all departments within the city within a business day once it is requested. As far as quarantine, we only have 1 member that's currently out on quarantine at this time. Knock on wood, we have not had any significant new infections within the Hartford Fire Department, and that is testament to your Hartford firefighters wearing their PPE accordingly for all potential or known COVID-19 calls. Fire stat, we will go through those slides here momentarily for your review and discussion. Recruit class, we're very excited about putting on our 5th recruit class in our administration. We are tentatively looking to bring on roughly 20 new members to the team. We currently have completed the physical agility test. Next will be the oral examination. After the oral examination, which will be scored, they will interview with the chief after a certified list will be compiled. So we're very excited here in the Hartford Fire Department about bringing new members onto the team and we're hoping that the recruit class will be able to start next month. Training, with everything going on with COVID, obviously we had to cut back on our hands-on training. However, we still have members participating in our professional development program. Numerous members have submitted requests to attend classes through the Connecticut State Fire Academy. Those requests have been approved. We do have also our elevator rescue awareness and operations. And lastly, technician class that is put on by Michael Dragonetti, arguably the subject matter expert on elevator rescue in the country. We're fortunate enough to have him here in the state of Connecticut, and he will continue the process of training our Hartford firefighters in that discipline. Thus far, we have approximately 80 members of the department trained in elevator rescue awareness and operations. This was a priority for the fire department, with so many members who retired between years 2016, 2017. So to replace that knowledge gap was critically important. And again, Michael Dragonetti puts on a phenomenal class. And then last but not least, our new apparatus. We do have engine 2 and engine 5 in our possession. They're currently being retrofitted at our equipment maintenance division on Jennings Road, as well as our ladder truck. We are hoping to have the 2 engines in service within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Our ladder truck, we're hoping after the successful completion of training for our members and our truck companies, as well as our training division, we'll be able to have the ladder truck in service within the next 2 months. Any questions on anything that I covered on this first slide? Okay, transitioning into our actual stats. So for structure fires, your Hartford firefighters once again did a phenomenal job in very trying circumstances for the month of February. As you all recall, we had inclement weather in February, but your Hartford firefighters stepped up to the plate as they always do and handled business. We had 10 structure fires, and we met our response time goal 100% of the time. And we had 3 more structure fires of note for February 2021 than we had February of 2020. For EMS, not as impressive as our structure fire response, but again, as I've already mentioned, with the inclement weather that we had in February, obviously we ask our firefighters to get to where they're going in a safe manner. With snow and ice on the roads, obviously they have to slow down to ensure that they are not involved in a motor vehicle accident. So 69% obviously is not where we want to be or where we wanted to be for February. However, taking into consideration the snow and the ice conditions, that number I have no significant issues with. Obviously, we continue to talk to our tour commanders, our district chiefs, as well as our firefighters about getting to a call for service in a timely manner, but more importantly, in a safe manner. So again, the inclement weather had an impact on our EMS response time for the month of February. Any questions on this slide or the structure fire slide?
No, Chief, but we're going to hold the questions till the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Next, I'd like to pass it over to Chief Marco, who will talk about our actual GIS maps as it pertains to EMS, hazmat, and structure fires.
Good evening. So as you all are well aware, the map to the left shows the neighborhood revitalization zones. The Hartford Fire Department responded to 1,345 calls for service during the month of February. The most calls for service was EMS calls with a total number of 757. And if you look into the small zones of the neighborhoods, you can see Northeast, Asylum Hill, and Berry Square had the most calls for service. The next slide is Narcan administered for the month of February. There was a total of 21 calls. Keep in mind that this is just Narcan administered. The fire department doesn't include whether or not that Narcan actually saved a life or not. It's just Narcan administered. As you can see, Blue Hills, Northeast, Asylum Hill, and Frog Hollow are the big neighborhoods where Narcan was administered. Next slide is all fires in the month of February. We had a total of 31 calls of building fires. We had 10 passenger vehicle fires. We had 6 rubbish trash fires. We had 5. And as you can see from the maps, the Salem Hill and Clay Arsenal were higher totals with 5. And then you had Behind the Rocks, South Green, and South Meadows with 3.
And sir, that concludes, sirs and madams, that concludes your fire department's presentation.
Okay, thank you for the presentation, Chief Freeman and Barco. I do have a question about the Narcan. Is that 20? Is that an increase?
No, sir, it is not. It is not a significant increase as to what we've seen before in the past. For the same month in February 2020, nor for recent months for within the last, I would say, even 6 months.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from the council members? Councilman Mictum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chief and Assistant Chief, for the presentation as always. A couple of questions. One is, do you have numbers on vaccinations for the firefighters?
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the question, Mr. Councilman. We have an estimate of the number of Hartford firefighters who have been vaccinated. It is a voluntary process. We encourage our members to get vaccinated. Thus far, every member who gets vaccinated has been asked to report that to our EAP liaison coordinator, Fredo Santana. And thus far, we have 89 members who have shared that information with them. We estimate that number is much higher. However, I cannot mandate that all members provide that information.
Thank you. And another question, basically unrelated to that one. What is going on with the implementation of the new radio system? Because I know rank and file firefighters, I am hearing from that this is a thing that keeps not happening, and it's a safety issue, that the money has been there, that the equipment has been purchased, and yet somehow for years now, 3 years I think we're talking about, the new system has not gotten operational, and it's always just around the corner. It's always like, yes, we're going to have it by this fall and then by this spring, and I think now the estimate is,
So
I'm not sure what it is.
Excuse me, Councilman Micton. So we have our next presentation is by ES&T Susan Webster. And I think
that's right.
Question should be directed to her.
Well, let me just, I would like the short answer from the chief, just from what he's seeing, and then we'll get more from her.
Okay, Council.
Sure, thank you for the question, sir. As you have indicated, this has been a process. So frustration is shared amongst everyone that's involved, not only in the fire department, but I'm certainly confident that Director Webster shares the same frustration. As Director Webster is going to get into the presentation, there are coordination efforts that are out of the city's control, dealing with various vendors, Norcom being one of them, the state of Connecticut being a second entity, and then Motorola themselves. So there has been a lot of discussion about it. There has been a lot of anticipation. No one wants the radios out on the street more than I do, being that we made it a priority from day one in our administration to ensure that our firefighters had proper and safe means to communicate when they're putting their lives on the line, serving our citizens.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Anyone else? All right, so that ends our Hartford Fire Department's presentation and Q&A. Chief, I would like for you and Assistant Chief, Deputy Chief Barco to stay on with us for the next presentation, if you will.
Yes, sir, no problem.
Okay, so our next presentation will be from, and this is a resolution requesting that the Director of the Department of Emergency Services and Telecommunications, along with Hartford's Chief Operating Officer, provide an updated report at the next scheduled Quality of Life meeting, which is this one. So we have Director Susan Webster of ES&T. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. If it's okay with you, I'd like to share my screen.
Absolutely.
Sue, as you're doing that, Councilman Sanchez, can I just share a couple of comments just to kind of provide additional background and context?
Yes.
Thank you, Councilman. So good evening, Council President Rosado, and Councilman Sanchez, Councilman Clark, and the rest of the members of City Council, and of course the community that's a part of tonight's meeting. As you heard Councilman Minkta mention, there have been questions and concerns regarding the city, specifically the fire department's radios, and also there have been questions and concerns raised regarding firefighter safety as it relates to those radio systems. And so we have been since 2008 managing a process or an upgrade to those radio systems. We are very fortunate to probably have the two best people in the state of Connecticut leading this effort, and that would be Chief Freeman as our fire chief and Sue Webster as a director of ES&T. So the both of them have been working together very closely with regard to this very complex technological upgrade. And so Sue is going to walk us through, two things, the two efforts underway specific to public safety radio infrastructure improvements. And then specifically, she will talk about the fire department's radios and provide, a timeline of the planning and implementation, again, that's been underway, and also some additional information we think it's important for everybody to be aware of. And for questions and concerns related to fire safety, Chief Freeman is happy to, provide any additional information or answer any questions as it relates to that. So with that being said, I will let Sue go through a presentation. We are very fortunate to have Sue. She has been doing this work for over 30 years. She also was responsible for regionalizing the state's largest 911 dispatch center. At that point, there were 9 towns that all utilized that same dispatch center, and she led the planning and implementation of that particular center. She's also one of the few women in the state that leads a 911 communication center, so we're really proud to have her leading this effort, and I think we're very fortunate for her expertise. So I will let Sue take it from here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Thea. Can everybody see the screen right now? You're all good? Okay, great.
Yes.
So this is clearly a very technical project, so bear with me as I will talk about some technical things, and hopefully everybody has an understanding as we move through. So right now, the city of Hartford is going through 3 separate radio projects. I'm going to talk about each of those projects. Today, I know that we're specifically discussing the fire department radio project, but I just want to make sure that there's a clear delineation between these 3 projects and that we're not confusing any of them with the others. So the first project that's actually currently ongoing and almost over is the police department radio project. And what we did with this particular project was to replace and upgrade the mobile and portable radios that law enforcement was using. Harris Corporation was a selected vendor for this particular project, and they were all purchased through the state of Connecticut contract pricing. So we did get the lowest pricing possible for all these radios. Funding for this project was done through the state of Connecticut OPM grant, as well as some of City of Hartford CIP funds. The total cost for this entire project was $3.4 million. 645 portable radios are currently being deployed to the officers in the field, and 250 mobile radios will be installed as new vehicles are added to the fleet or replaced in the HPD fleet. So this is currently going on, and we hope to finish this entire project by the end of the year, but we can certainly quicken it up if we need to. The second project that is actually in the very beginning stages right now is a citywide infrastructure project. So first I'd like to talk about the infrastructure itself and the current state of the infrastructure, so you have an understanding as to why I believe that it's in need of replacement. So this particular system was installed in the city in 1987. So it's a 34-year-old analog radio system. The mobile and portable radios were upgraded back in 2008 when the FCC had a rebanding initiative. And this replacement included all public safety radios. So those were all replaced in 2008. In 2012, the communication center was moved from our Jennings Road location to here at the Public Safety Complex on High Street. So at that time, the communication center equipment that needed to be replaced was upgraded at that particular time. This particular radio system is a proprietary Harris EDAX radio system. So what does that mean? So back 34 years ago in 1987, most radio systems would only talk to each other. So Harris radios would talk to Harris. Motorola would talk to Motorola. E.F. Johnson would speak with E.F. Johnson. And you couldn't have disparate companies speak to one another. That's changed now in 2021, where most of these systems can talk to each other as long as you have an upgraded system. So this particular system operates as an analog system. Our primary location is over at the Hartford Insurance Group, and it's been there since 1987 when the infrastructure was originally installed. And we have our backup location that's over at 280 Trumbull. The original backup site was at 777 Main, but when they vacated that building, it was moved over to 280 Trumbull. So part of the biggest concerns with this particular system is that many of the components have been deemed end of parts in service by Harris Corporation. Specifically, the portable radios that have now been replaced from both the law enforcement and the fire department side were end of parts and end of service in 2015. So we couldn't get parts for them, we couldn't get them serviced, and we were taking pieces and parts and putting them together. The mobile radios, same thing in 2014. Our transmitter site equipment, which is located over at the Hartford Insurance Group and on Trumbull Street, is at end of life in 2023. And that's the brains of our operation. That's what all of these radios are communicating to and allowing them to talk to each other and to the dispatch center. And our communication center consoles are end of life they became end of life in 2018. So it's very, very difficult for us to find any parts for those systems as well. So that's the current state of our radio infrastructure, which is why we started a project to work on this infrastructure and see where we needed to go with it. So where are we now and what do we need to do? So we need to replace and upgrade the entire citywide radio infrastructure, which will include the addition of 2 tower sites and the equipment associated with those tower sites. We're going to need to replace all of the consoles in the communication center, which is 16 in total. And we also have the potential to connect to the state of Connecticut land mobile radio network. So who uses the citywide radio infrastructure? Well, many departments throughout the city are using it. Obviously, public safety, so Hartford Fire and Hartford PD both use the system. License and inspections uses it, the Board of Education, Department of Public Works, and any other department that requires usage of the system. For instance, during the election, we were allowing different departments to use the radio so they could provide some communication and talk to each other. We anticipate the funding for this project to come through either the City of Hartford CIP, but we're also researching grant opportunities for this project as it's going to be very expensive. We project the cost at approximately $8 million to replace the entire infrastructure. And the entire timeline for a project of this magnitude is 2 to 4 years. And right now we're currently engaged in writing an RFP in order to find out exactly what it's going to cost and what vendors actually have to offer us as we upgrade the radio infrastructure. So now we'll move on to the fire department radio project, which is separate from the other 2 projects. In this particular project, emergency services and the fire department play 2 distinct roles. The fire department is replacing their end user radio equipment, And ES&T is charged with replacing the radio consoles in the dispatch center and connection to the state of Connecticut Land Mobile Radio Network. And I'm going to get into a little more of this in the next few slides. So the role of the fire department. They replaced all the mobile and portable radios, the vehicle repeaters, and the firefighter accountability system. Motorola was a selected vendor for this project, and this was funded through an approximately $1 million grant through the Firefighters Assistance, FEMA, Firefighters Assistance Grant. So the role of emergency services and telecommunications. Well, we were charged with finding a solution to connect the new Motorola digital equipment with the existing Harris 34-year-old analog radio system. We needed to execute a contract with the state of Connecticut in order to utilize their land mobile radio network, which we began that process in May of 2019. And we needed to procure Motorola radio consoles and any other equipment that was necessary to accommodate the fire department in their dispatching needs. We were also required to integrate systems like the fire station alerting and the recording devices. So this is where it gets a little tricky because I wanted to report on all of the milestones throughout this project. I did work with Chief Freeman in order to put this together to make sure I had all the pieces in which the fire department did in preparation for the project. So we can kind of give you an outline of what happened and how we got to where we are today. So back in February 2016, Chief Freeman was appointed chief of the Hartford Fire Department. He immediately identified that there were deficiencies in the radio system. And at that point, he established a radio communications committee. And I apologize for reading what's in front of me. That's not typically what I want to do with a PowerPoint, but I want to make sure I get the dates and the actions correct. So November 2016, the FEMA Assistance to Firefighters grant was submitted to fund the procurement of the new mobile and radios, repeaters, and firefighter accountability system. In June of 2016, Hartford Radio Communications Committee conducted a study for 450 Columbus Boulevard after fire department personnel had documented concerns during an emergency incident there. July of 2017 is when the fire department was officially notified that they were awarded the grant for approximately $1 million to procure their radios. In October of 2017 is when I came on board with the City of Hartford and was appointed as the Director of Emergency Services and Telecommunications. In December of 2017, Leo Siri of the Hartford Fire Department published the Hartford Fire Department Radio Report. And these were the findings of the Communications Committee that Chief Freeman had established. The report highlighted the results of the radio clarity and radio reach with Motorola radios and repeaters. March of 2018, Chief Freeman issued a departmental memorandum 0185. It was titled Radio Communication Issues. And this gave explicit directions to utilize the talk-around channels for specific addresses and various types of emergencies throughout the city. In May of 2018, Hartford Fire placed their order for 21 mobile radios, 21 mobile repeaters, 30 mobile radios, and 95 portable radios for use of the Hartford Fire Department. In July of 2018, the Motorola equipment arrived. October of 2018, the fire dispatch and the fire incident channels go live on Motorola radios for testing purposes. And the Radio Communication Committee convenes to discuss the Kevin Bell line of duty death report that cited Fireground Communications and NFPA 1821, which is a standard for two-way portable communication devices, as a contributing factor. The purpose of the committee meeting was to discuss new radio functionality and the implementation. In December 2019, December 2018, Motorola mobile radios and repeaters were installed in all frontline fire apparatus. And also in December of 18, Motorola training and functionality tested commenced during live fire training at the Hartford Fire Academy. March of 2019, Emergency Services and Telecommunications engaged the vendor Norcom Communications to assist in the interoperability between the existing Harris analog radio system and the new digital Motorola equipment. So now between March of 2019 and November of 2019, we work with Motorola and the state of Connecticut on a project to provide connectivity from the Motorola equipment to the Harris consoles. The project was completed, but unfortunately, it was determined during the testing process that the unit IDs could not be displayed on the consoles. So when a firefighter is out in the field and they're transmitting on their radio, we are unable to see in the communication center who is transmitting from that radio, and that was problematic. So because of the resulting firefighter safety issues with this particular plan, it was deemed that this was not a viable solution for the fire department. So in November of 2019 is when we were able to secure a fully executed contract with the state of Connecticut to use their land mobile radio network. And then in December of 2019, we requested a quote from Norcom to install Motorola radio consoles in the communication center and connect to the state network. And what's interesting about this point is that Norcom is the only vendor authorized by the state of Connecticut to work on the state of Connecticut network. And this process requires extensive back and forth between Norcom, Motorola, and the state in order to approve the functionality of the system. In this same month, I had requested from the city funding to purchase the equipment that Motorola would be quoting us on. April 2020, Norcom completes the diagrams of the proposed engineering for the Motorola console radio solution. And then finally, in November 2020, the final proposal from Norcom was received on behalf of Motorola in the amount of $352,000. We immediately cut the PO, and Motorola opened the Hartford project and assigned a project manager. This is when we truly started moving forward on this project. December 2020, Motorola confirmed the equipment is ordered and in process. In January 2021, the equipment came in and it was installed at the staging facility in Naugatuck, Connecticut. Just this past February, the equipment was all staged and we were able to have some Hartford Fire and ES&T staff make a visit to Norcom to view the progress of the configuration of the consoles. This month, we did review the final configuration at the Norcom staging facility, and we completed train the trainer training. That's a mouthful. And we did that at the Norcom facility. So most importantly, what's the current project status? Where are we today and where are we going forward? So the fire department, from their side, they've secured all the equipment, and all the equipment has also been programmed. ES&T, we've secured the contract with the state of Connecticut. Motorola consoles have been purchased. They're currently staged in Naugatuck. The training for the trainers has been completed. Dispatcher training on the new equipment is being coordinated as we speak. The existing equipment at the firehouses is being evaluated, and the new equipment will be installed for fire station alerting. Norcom is meeting with the FACT division tomorrow on this process. And if all goes well, we anticipate go live on this system to be the end of April of 2021. I think this committee mostly wants the answers to this question. Why did it take so long, and what are the major contributors to this project timeline? The first issue was a proprietary radio system. As I explained earlier, we have a Harris analog proprietary radio system trying to coordinate with a Motorola digital end user equipment, and they don't talk to each other. So we had to come up with something to make these pieces of equipment speak to each other. All aspects of the system configuration were required to be approved by both Motorola and the state of Connecticut. And it was a very difficult process. There was extensive coordination and consultation that was required to make this happen. And you can see the gaps in the timelines as that coordination was taking place. We did have one initial attempt to take the digital equipment and have it work with the existing analog equipment, and unfortunately that was not successful. If it was successful, that effort would have taken approximately 8 months, and it would have been faster and much less costly than connecting to the state system itself. Joining the state system is a $350,000 additional cost that comes out of city funds, and that's about a 16-month process. And the major difficulty we came across in not being able to go with that original 8-month project timeline was the technical difficulties with the displays of the unit IDs not coming up on the consoles on the Harris infrastructure. That's a lot of information. It's confusing, but I think it's very detailed because we want to be as transparent as we can be with what happened, why it happened, and where we are moving forward. And that's it, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Webster. Can you clear the screen so that we can see each other?
My pleasure. Did that work, or is it still up there?
No, it's still up there. Let me see if I could. Okay, there we go. Okay, thank you for that presentation and the timeline. It was pretty accurate, right? Okay, just give me 1 second, Councilman. So I just want to start off with, with a statement. One of the main reasons why Councilman Majority Leader Clark and myself requested this presentation is because there has been radio issues and it has been going on for years. How severe was it? I'm not sure until, recently there was some issues, and, we're not here to blame anyone. We're not here to point fingers, and we're not here to insult anyone. What we are here for is to make sure that our firefighters, our police officers, DPW as well, and anyone else who's utilizing this communication system are safe and well. So I do recall several years back, and I would say approximately 3.5 years, that the compatibility between the Harris and the Motorola was known not to exist. It was also known that the infrastructure that we have for communication is very antiquated. We've had several meetings at the Quality of Life Public Safety, myself and Councilman Clark, as well as the rest of the team. And it's been very frustrating that at these meetings, it seems as if there was a pushback of some sort as to trying to move over and update and upgrade the system, especially when approximately 2 years ago, I discovered that the state has a very well-managed and very strong infrastructure for communication, and I was insisting that we should get on board. For 2 reasons. Because the communication works, it's dependable. Actually, 3 reasons. And the third is because it will save the city of Hartford hundreds of thousands of dollars, especially when it comes to the maintenance part. It was understood then also that by purchasing this Motorola equipment, of which I was supportive of, that it was known that we have to purchase the consoles to go with it. At a very minimum, 2 consoles, when basically 3 will work even better. And several weeks ago in discussions, I was completely caught off guard to find out that we have purchased Motorola radios with a 5-year warranty, and it's been sitting on the shelf for 3 years. And yet we have no console until now that's apparently ordered. So again, this is disturbing to me. I have difficulty understanding why we're waiting past 3 years. I understand what you just stated in your presentation, but I'm having a hard time. Just would like to know why we will purchase radios with no consoles and it sits unusable, among some other questions that I do have. So I will open up the floor, starting with Councilman Mictum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think my first question, and I do probably have more, was similar, which is maybe honing in, if we could, on that. I think it was an 8-month period in 2019. And Ms. Webster, you'll correct me if how I get the details wrong, but it seems like I understood you to say the city was working with Norcom to make the compatibility with the old system and the new radios happen. And presumably they were getting paid for this. And then after 8 months, we found out that it didn't work. I mean, I guess I would like to know, and I feel like this is what Councilman Sanchez was getting at. Like, it seems like somebody maybe should have known that that wasn't the best route forward. Also, if it didn't work, if they did all this work for us, did we get our money back? Why did we lose those 8 months is what I'm driving.
Sure. Well, first, Norcom works with the state of Connecticut, and they were trying to get us to a point where the Motorola radios were in service. They did not charge us for the work that they did. They came in, they assessed the situation, they knew that we were having a problem, and they wanted to help us with the interoperability between the 2 systems. It was not known by us, by the state of Connecticut or Norcom, that we were not going to be able to get the unit IDs on the consoles. In retrospect, of course, we wish we knew that sooner. I mean, hindsight's 2020. We didn't know that. The state of Connecticut loaned us equipment to put at the Hartford Insurance Group, and they also offered to loan us consoles to put into the dispatch center. And we were going to take them up on all of those opportunities when we went through all this restructuring, we went through the design process, and that's when it was found that it wasn't going to work. And it is imperative to have unit IDs on the radio system. I wish we had known sooner, and we could have those radios working today, but unfortunately we did not know sooner.
Thank you, Director Webster. Councilman Mitchum, does that answer the question?
Yeah, it answers that question, I guess. And I don't want to be the dead horse, but like, is it really so that no one? I mean, I understand that like the city wouldn't know, maybe the state, but these folks that we like, that no one could have known from jump that this was going to be 8 months down the drain. Well,
unfortunately, with this old analog radio system, and Norcom is a Motorola vendor. They're not a Harris vendor, although we did have Harris involved as well. It's not typical. Something that you do is try and have a new digital radio product work with an older analog system. So we tried to do everything that we could, and we knew that that was going to take less time than getting onto the full state network. We are trying to do what we could as quickly, efficiently, and cost effectively as we could. And unfortunately, it backfired. But getting onto the state system itself, as you can see from these timelines as well, was an 18-month process, and we still haven't completed it. If next month it goes through, that's where we get that number, the 18 months. The other project was half that time, so we were hopeful to get the fire department online with their radios as quickly as possible, that we would go with that solution.
Let me ask a follow-up question. When you say it's that, you know, the process to get on the state system is really long, is it long for, sorry, that's my unhappy one-year-old assistant. Is it long for technical reasons or for bureaucratic reasons?
For technical reasons. No, the state was very cooperative. We did get the memorandum of agreement signed back in 2019, so that wasn't an issue, but it's from a technical perspective, because we had to basically build up our system to integrate with their system.
Thank you for that. So question, Director Webster, as we go along with the implementation of the radio system in councils, is there anything else that the city will be seeking to purchase with the assistance of the state to make sure that our radio communication system is top notch?
Yes, so as I discussed, probably the second project that I discussed was about the overall radio infrastructure. So that's what we're looking at today. We are hopeful, obviously, for next month to get the Hartford Fire Department on the state system. Moving forward with the entire radio infrastructure, the state can't handle the entire city of Hartford. I've had several conversations with the department in Department of Statewide Emergency Telecommunications, and the entire city is just too big to go onto their system. We might be able to integrate with their system. So if one of our officers goes outside of the city of Hartford, they can roam onto the state system, but we can't go onto solely the state system. So that's why we're looking at probably an $8 million upgrade to our system.
Thank you for that. Just wanted to bring in, we also have joined with us is Jason Diaz, who is the local 760 president that represents the Hartford Fire Union. So I'd like to bring him in to hear his comments and concerns or suggestions for that matter.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. My name is Jason Diaz, president of Local 760. I was elected by firefighters to represent them and work on behalf of them. Our main issues for a union are better wages, safe working conditions, life safety, and benefits. Radios fall under working conditions and life safety. It's a tool we use on every call. Our current radios and infrastructure are dated and obsolete. We keep the radios operating by ordering parts on eBay. It's unacceptable. We have been patient. We understand that this process is complex, technological, like Mrs. Webster said, in different systems. I compare it to iPhone and Android. I understand the city chipped in along with the grant to pay for some of our project. I'll call it the fire department's project, and I appreciate that. But it's taking too long to implement these radios. Other fire departments have firefighters in these dispatch centers. We have none. No representation in the dispatch centers. Maybe if we did this process doesn't play out the way it did. The chief and the mayor holds us accountable, our members accountable on certain issues. We ask to say, enough is enough. This is not politics. You're playing with firefighters' lives. And that is all. Thank you. Any questions for me?
I actually have a question, President Diaz. What is this, from your standpoint, as a representative of the union, what is the union member standpoint regarding this process? How are they feeling? Has there been any feedback that or takeaways from your interaction with them that you would like to share, just to enlighten us?
Well, obviously, I didn't want to get into the emotional side. For us, this is emotional. Obviously, we knew it was going to take a long process. Chief and like Susan Webster's timeline stated, she wasn't here for it. Chief saw the need for it, pushed it. From what our understandings, we have a health and safety meeting every month, and we have a union meeting every month. Due to COVID, now we do Zooms, but I'm out there on the fire ground talking to members. They come to me with certain issues. And when a member comes to me and says, Jay, if I die, go after the city. And this is about radios. These new radios, they see it, they touch them. Like Chief said earlier in his presentation, we have over 125 new firefighters, and we got a new recruit class. These firefighters heard the stories of running into burning buildings, helping citizens, and these radios have a Mayday button on the radios that they can utilize if they're in a sticky situation. And we're always in sticky situations. That's what fires are. They're organized chaos. And you hit that button and the Mayday alarm goes off. Where with our current radios, with certain buildings, coverage issues, you might have physics, from what I'm understanding, you're gonna have issues getting out. And when a member is concerned about their safety because of these radios, I have to do my job. And there's no one to blame. I understand our infrastructure is old. And when you're a city resident, like all of you guys are, and ladies, you understand that sometimes this process takes a long time. And with technology, it's going to take long. We waited patiently 3+ years. And obviously in January, I think I didn't reach out to the right people, but I spoke to HR, wanted to set up a meeting with ES&T or whoever in that division that can help us. Chief Freeman, Chief Barkle, Chief Riley has met with us every month on health safety issues. And we heard all the reasoning behind what took so long. But like I said in my little statement, enough is enough. Our members see it. They see it as politics and as a game. And sometimes I use that word as well. Politics is a game. But understandably, radios is a different beast. And obviously there's a lot of issues that we're dealing with. And I'll be honest, I don't see it happening in April. I'll be happy if it does happen, but I don't believe it. My firefighters don't believe it as well. And constituents that have called me, and other constituents, you hear me? Residents of this city who have knowledge of this issue don't believe it either. So please prove me wrong and get these radios online. Any other questions?
No, Councilman.
Okay, this is not for you, Mr. Diaz. This question is for Ms. Webster. I'm just trying to bring it up here. So, in 2019, there was a $5 million grant that was awarded to replace mobile portable radios through the Connecticut Policy and Management. Do you have any updates on that grant? How it was spent?
I do. That particular grant was written to update our computer-aided dispatch system, the records management system for the city, as well as the mobile and portable radios for law enforcement. The fire department had already purchased their mobile and portable radios at that point. And that money has been expended almost completely, and it's all been accounted for. Most of it needs to still get paid out to the CAD company because we don't plan on cutting over until May of this year.
Okay, and then also, if I'm not mistaken, do you say that the Hartford Police Department is all on the state system now, or
No.
is it just a C4?
I can't speak to what they do at C4. The Hartford Police Department is using new Harris portable radios. Not all have been deployed into the field yet, but we are working through that process. They've all been programmed. And they are also getting new Harris mobile radios installed in their vehicles.
Okay, so hello? Okay. This Harris radio, is it compatible to the state system?
Yes, so the new portables that we purchased for law enforcement, although they're a different vendor than what the police department and fire department, they're different vendors, but they're both compliant. P25 compliant is an industry standard. So what they will do is speak to any other P25 radio system. So that's why we purchased the Harris portables for the police department, because the Harris portables, the new ones, the digital ones, will speak with our current Harris analog system, but they will also speak with any other system, a high-end digital system moving forward.
Okay, and then now the consoles that were ordered is supposed to come in by the end of April.
Correct. They're currently staged in Naugatuck at the vendor facility. They've been tested with the radios and they are functioning. So we have to install the consoles here, connect to the state infrastructure, update the fire station alerting system, and then we'll be able to go live with the system.
And how many consoles did we purchase?
We purchased 2.
2, okay. And is there still a need to purchase a third one? If I remember a couple of years ago, I believe it was a total of 3.
We would like to purchase a third one. We didn't do that at this juncture. We are going out to the RFP for the entire radio infrastructure. And again, just like the radio systems, now that we bought this higher end product, they should be able to work with both systems.
Okay. And this question is for Chief Freeman. So it's my understanding from searching, I believe the HFD reapplied for the assistant to firefighter grant again for this year?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so then that grant, it requires a city match of up to 10%, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and going back to Ms. Webster, if this grant is awarded, what would that money be used for? Where would it be allocated?
I don't think that's my decision, sir. I think that would be Chief Freeman's decision.
So isn't that the same as, didn't we receive a $1 million grant back in, let me see here, 5 minutes.
July of 2018, Mr. Councilman.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, sir. So yes, sir. So that's this grant that we just applied for. The original radios that we have in our possession now are for the members in suppression. The AFG that we just applied for is to outfit all the members in support services with the matching Motorola radios.
Okay. So now, when these 2 consoles come in, they're installed. Of course, we have to match the frequencies with the consoles, the new radios that's sitting on the shelf right now, Ms. Webster?
Correct.
Okay. How many radios did we purchase that's unusable at the moment?
Chief Freeman, do you have that?
For the fire department, it was 95 handheld or portable radios. And for the apparatus, I believe it was 30 mobile radios that goes into the apparatus.
Okay, is there a way, and I'm not sure because, you know, obviously we didn't have the console for those radios, Ms. Webster. What can we do to recoup the 3 years loss of warranty? Is there a way we can negotiate that with Motorola? Being that it was a reason, maybe it's a COVID reason, or they weren't working with you fairly on a timely basis?
I didn't have anything to do with the grant or the purchase of the radios. So I think that would be a question for Chief Freeman.
Okay, so now I'm just a tad confused. So the radios is on you, Chief Freeman?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the console is on you, Ms. Webster?
Yes, sir.
ES&T?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then is there a lack of communication here between the two? I mean, if we purchased the radio, but we didn't purchase the console, wasn't there some kind of coordination? I'm sure that was well known that the radios were going to be purchased.
There could have been better communication between the departments. We could have been better.
All right. Now who's under you, Ms. Webster? Who are your to-go person, number 2, number 3?
So Joe Pizzuto is the deputy director within the department. He's been with me for about 6 months. He's retired captain from Waterbury Fire Department.
Okay.
And Mike Bruce is our communications manager. And he's actually retired law enforcement captain from Waterbury Fire, or PD, excuse me.
Okay. Was it Bruce that was with us, that joined us the last time you and I met with Blue Wing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So if and I understand you're busy, Susan. Being the director of ES&T, you have to be busy. So if you missed the communication, was Mr. Bruce involved with this, being that he was involved with the Blue Wing solicitation?
No, and I'm not saying, I mean, obviously I'm the director of the department, so I wouldn't say that somebody that worked for me failed to communicate. It was, you know, we should have, my department should have communicated better with the fire department to make sure that all the pre-planning was done and that the systems were compatible. And so as soon as we knew that there was a deficiency, we addressed it.
All right, but you have the final word, the final say as far as purchase.
No, the fire department purchased the radios, and then I purchased the radio equipment in the communication center to make that hit the fire department's radios work.
That's what I'm saying. You have the final say for your parts, the consoles and the communication system.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to skip my next questions.
Yeah,
Someone else has.
I just need maybe this to be walked back just for my own edification and clarity. Originally, we started with Harris, right?
Correct. Harris is our 34-year-old radio system. That's correct.
And the reason why Harris can't be continued is because it's an antiquated system. Analog. Harris represents analog. Motorola represents digital. And we want to transition from Harris system of analog into digital, which is Motorola, correct?
Well, Harris also has a digital solution, and that's what we purchased for the police department. Their mobile radios and their portable radios are Harris, and they are digital, and they are compatible with our current system, and they will be compatible with any digital system that we purchase as well.
Gotcha.
It's very, I understand. It's very complicated.
And so the delay from the time that this money was received and to the implementation was basically the breakdown in communication between departments to making sure that all was needed for the transition. That's kind of a summation.
No, the delay was multifaceted. It had to do with ordering the equipment. It had to do with configuring the equipment. It had to do with getting a contract with the state of Connecticut. My only comment was in the beginning, could we have communicated better to have a better strategy and made it go a little bit quicker? Yes. But is it a miscommunication between the departments that made it go slowly? Absolutely not. And if you look back at the timeline, you can see that most of the time that was lost was the state of Connecticut, Motorola, and Norcom trying to design a system that would work for the city. We lost the first 8 months because the solution that we chose did not work. And then we had another 18 months to tag on the end of that, going to the second solution, which we're about to implement in April.
And so are you confident, based upon your timeline, of this being rolled out by the end of next month? Are you confident that we will hit that goal? Some hesitation.
Yeah, there is some hesitation because this has been a very long and difficult project. The vendors are telling me that absolutely we're going to be able to cut over this system at the end of April. So I pray at night, honestly, I do, that this works because it's been frustrating for my department. It's been frustrating for Chief Freeman and his team. But it's been most frustrating for the firefighters, and I can understand that because they've been told that we're going to cut over, they've been told that we have a solution, that we have the funding, that we have the equipment, and we haven't been able to cross home plate yet. But that is absolutely our intention. And so I do hope that it's get done, and that's my goal, to get it done by the end of April.
So if we don't meet that timeline, is there any way to make up for lost time? So the time that we have already lost, is there a way for us to put that back on the back end, so that we just won't be missing out on as Councilman Sanchez was saying, the warranty portion?
I'm not sure. We can certainly have conversation with Motorola, and I think Chief Freeman has done that already. So we can certainly have conversations with them to see what their thoughts are.
Okay. And also too, so how long do you think, so if we don't hit next month, what is the state going to do? Do they need additional help as far as trying to get this system implemented? I'm just trying to figure out what can be done in order for us to meet this timeline for next month. Do we need additional hands on deck in order to ensure that we are not jeopardizing the safety of our city employees?
Sure, no, I completely understand. And I would say that it all depends on what the problem is that's causing the delay. We've been moving forward full steam for the past 3-4 months, and things have been going well with minor setbacks. So it all depends on where the setback is. So it's kind of difficult to answer that question. The state has been cooperating with us for sure, but you have to remember that we're going onto their system. So if we do something wrong on our end and the configuration is wrong, it can affect the system statewide. So that's what they're trying to prevent us from doing. But as far as the timeline is concerned, I can't answer that question unless I knew what the setback actually was.
Okay. I'll just give my time to anybody else that wants to ask questions.
May I have a point of clarification?
Yes, go ahead, Chief.
So I just want to clarify and maybe provide some background for accuracy purposes. So going back to 2016, prior to me even arriving to Hartford, reading Kevin Bell's non-duty death report, I did read that radio communications was well documented as a possible contributing factor to his LOPD. Even prior to that, it's been well known within the fire department there have been longstanding radio communication issues. So again, making it a priority from day one was first and foremost within my administration. At the time, Clayton Northgraves was the director of ES&T. I discussed the plan with Clayton for us to get him to the state. He was 100% supportive. After getting his support, I went to Mayor Bronin, explained the problem, and advised him what the plan was. My plan as the chief of the Hartford Fire Department and the support from the director of ES&T for us to transition into the state radio system. The mayor was 100% supportive. Ms. Martinez, at the time, was chief of staff when I was first originally appointed as chief. Since then, since she's become the chief operating officer, she has been 100% supportive of the fire department transitioning into the state radio system. So once we established a radio committee that's comprised of members of the Hartford Fire Department of all ranks, there was often, frequent, and consistent communication with members of ES&T. So if communication information was not relayed from the members of ES&T to Director Webster, well, that is simply out of my control. But we have the minutes. Leo Siri, who was a lead on this project, will be able to provide background on those meetings, on those discussions, on those conversations, on that collaboration, on that coordination, and the efforts that went into us transitioning from what's already been stated, the dated city radio system, which as the chief of the department in good conscience, I had to do something. staying on the city's system with no plan in place to upgrade our system was not an option. So if there's anyone to blame, if anyone is looking for someone to blame, I will take all of the blame for us transitioning, us being a fire department, from the city system onto the state Motorola system. However, I think it's very important to provide background in regards to communication, so there's no misunderstandings as to communication that was had or was not had. There was frequent and often inconsistent communication between emergency services and telecommunications and the Hartford Fire Department in regards to these radios. As it's already been stated, digital and analog, because that was highlighted a few times in this presentation, they're not compatible. So obviously, if we go to a digital Motorola P25 compliant system, we know that we have to get the consoles. The consoles originally were quoted as $50,000 from the state. The goalposts kept moving. So as the goalposts kept moving as far as the cost, obviously the facts changed in regards to us transitioning. But I just thought it was very critical and important, at least for my sake as a professional, to provide that clarification and correct the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I've heard fire, but this also impacts the police department, does it not? If I heard correctly.
What impacts? I'm sorry. So the current radio system.
The current radio system, it impacts police department too, right?
Yes, sir. The police department also have longstanding complaints about the radio system, dating back years as the firefighters.
Okay, and so Director Webster, just for the clarity for the general public, your department manages the 911 system, correct?
Yes, correct.
And so no longer the 311 system, because I know it used to at one point.
Correct.
So just 911. And so the radio communication between police and fire for 911 system, also to Public Works uses the channels?
They use the radio system. Yep, correct.
Okay, and as well as license and inspection.
Correct.
Any other departments?
The Board of Education.
Board of Ed, okay. So all of these departments that you just named are impacted by the inefficiencies of this analog system currently.
That is true.
Okay.
That's true. And that's why we're working to replace that system. As we speak, we're working on that RFP process.
Okay. And where are you at with the RFP process? Is it ready to be issued to the public?
It should be within the next several weeks. We've been working on it for about a year. We sent it out to both PD and fire. I just have to get some additional information to them to look at to make sure that it's meeting their needs as well.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes. Yeah, I know it's been a long
Everybody raised their hand at the same time.
I know it's been a long evening. Chief, I really appreciate what you shared with us. If I would like for those minutes to be emailed to both Majority Leader Clark and myself and council. Also, just a quick question. So with the fire department, and hopefully we'll get this system running up and running by April. How's the system for the Board of Education for the school system? When would that be up and running?
So you're referring to the new radio infrastructure that we're putting the RFP out for?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. You're still doing the RFP, right?
Yes, and that's probably a 2 to 4 to 5 year process to get that infrastructure up. They have several portable radios that they use in the schools, but they still can use the Harris analog system that's in place today. Okay.
And in case of an emergency in the school system where there's a lockdown, God forbid, there's no worries or no concerns that communication will fail from the school?
I can't answer that question right now. I know that when they're rebuilding some of the schools, they're adding additional resources in those schools as they're doing safe rooms and so forth. But I'm not sure about how good the radio communications are in the school systems.
Okay. Okay, so I don't have any other questions. I'm going to relinquish the floor to Majority Leader Clark. I do want to say to you, Ms. Susan Webster, thank you for your presentation. We are in a time where we have to, be concerned about the safety of others, especially when they're putting their life on the line for us. And again, even though DPW are not firefighters or police officers, they do, have to work out sometimes in the middle of the streets. And, anything can happen to them as well. And anyone else who's utilizing radios is for a purpose. I'm just looking forward to getting this infrastructure up and running sooner than later, especially for those that put their lives on the line. And thank you for your presentation. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Councilman. I believe I saw Council, I'm gonna call ladies first. So Council President first, and then Councilman Mitchell will be followed by Council President.
Thank you, through you, Chair. First of all, Chief Freeman, thank you for your presentation, and Director Webster for yours too, and for the clarification and timeline that you provided. So, Chief Freeman, if you can send to Council those emails that you talked about, and timelines, we'd like to see them. So these radios were purchased by you, Chief Freeman. Which year again? Was it 2018, you said?
July 31st, 2018. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When did the MOU come into play with the state?
I believe that was 2019.
I can get you that date. November of 2019.
So how many months after you purchased the radios? Chief Freeman, help me out here. I don't have a calendar in front of me.
That will be, I believe, 15, 16 months.
And when were the consoles bought?
So the radio consoles were finally purchased, and I apologize, I'm going through my presentation so I can get the correct dates. So the final proposal was received from the vendor in November of 2020.
Okay.
And
so what was the reason that it took so long for the MOU to come into play with the state? Almost a year and a half.
So that's when the MOU was finally signed. We began working on the MOU. I have that date here. In May of 2019. So I was working with Corp Counsel to get that MOU signed with the state of Connecticut.
Okay, thank you. And can you also please send Counsel a copy of the MOU?
Of course.
Thank you. I'm all set, Majority Leader.
Thank you, Council President. Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you. Director Webster, just another question for you. I think it was Councilman Sanchez who had asked, but now we've all talked so much I lost track, but about how likely was it that the end of April deadline would be met, and you paused and you said you hope so, and I understand, it's been a long road. What specifically could happen? I mean, is there something that you're thinking could happen that would, in particular, that would slow it down? Or are you're sort of being cautious because everything has been trouble?
Absolutely, and being cautious. Everything is staged right now at the radio vendor. It's working properly. So they need to come here and they need to install the equipment. We have to go through the training process, which shouldn't be lengthy. So we are very hopeful that we're going to be able to manage this by the end of April.
But there's nothing specific, and I don't just mean that is on your end or on Chief Freeman's end, but like there's nothing where you can sort of concretely say, well, X thing might happen and that would push it back at this point.
No, sir.
Okay, thanks.
All right, I'm doing one opportunity. So, City Council President, Councilman LaFawn, and then I'll go back to Council President.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Co-Chairs, just a quick question, and I apologize if this was answered previously. I had to take a couple phone calls while I was on this presentation, but I remember at the beginning of the presentation, Ms. Webster, you stated that you were hoping you were going to show us the PowerPoint with the hopes that it'd be done by the end of this year. I thought I heard, and then now I'm hearing something about April. Is there a differentiation between, or did I just hear wrong? If you could please clarify.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. We are currently deploying the new portable radios and mobile radios for law enforcement. And we can only do a little bit at a time. So those are getting rolled out into the field right now. So yes, that's a different project.
Okay, so basically all of the systems would be done by the end of the year, but at the end of April, it would just be for law enforcement first?
At the end of April, we're anticipating on going live with the fire department having their portables online, as well as the new consoles for fire dispatch in the dispatch center and connectivity to the state of Connecticut network.
Fantastic.
That's what we're looking to do by the end of April.
Yeah.
And law enforcement portables and mobiles should be complete, and by the end of the year it should be done well before then, but we're rolling that out slowly. So we do have the two new Motorola consoles in the dispatch center, but the infrastructure is still not updated, nor are the consoles that we dispatch law enforcement.
So basically the end of the year is the timeline for all systems to be a go, right? That's
the end user equipment, and not the main infrastructure.
Not the main.
Phase for that.
Yeah. And obviously this is much more complicated above me, but I just wanted to make a differentiation between April and the end of the year, so that way. But thank you for the clarification.
Councilman, you all set? Council President.
Yes. So my question is, could you talk a little bit about, I don't know if it's you, Director Webster or Chief Freeman, about the rollout of the radios for the fire department? I hear that, the 6 weeks, so they have to come back and they have to install the radio. What about quality control? How does that transition? How does that roll out, right? Are
you referring to the portable radios?
Yes.
Okay, that would be a question for Chief Freeman.
Good evening, Madam President. How are you, ma'am?
Good, and you? Thank you, Chief.
So the quality control in regards to the quality of the radio transmissions themselves?
Right, when our firefighters are out there in distress and they have to press that Mayday button.
Yes, ma'am. So that should function. We have gone through lengthy tests. Again, we're very fortunate to have current members and even retired members. We had a retired district aide, Terry Wright, who spent countless days, if not weeks, helping Leo, because he's passionate about radios and he's very knowledgeable about radios. He was up here on his own dime helping with this process. We have members who have dedicated a significant amount of time to go through and upside down, inside out, ensure that these radios function in the manner that we want them to. So all of those functionality tests have been conducted. We will aggressively be monitoring the quality. Myself and President Diaz, we've had that conversation on numerous occasions, just to ensure that if there are any problems, hiccups, or issues, we catch them early on and we address them as promptly as possible. So the quality assurance, quality control, Madam President, will be frequent and often.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
I just have a quick question. I see you comment. I just have a quick question regarding going back to CIP. So can you just expound upon the $8 million? Is that separate from CIP money you talked about regarding investing in this new transition on radio technology infrastructure?
Sure. So that money has not yet been secured. We are looking for grant opportunities to fund it. And I've also put in a request through the CIP. And that it was this year's CIP moving out for the next 6 years or so, I believe. And
as far as the request for CIP, how much per budget year with the 6 year rollout? That is a question that I don't have an answer to. I think once we get the RFPs back and we see how the vendors are planning on deploying the system, I'll be able to have a better answer for you. Okay. COO Montanez, do you have any other insight regarding the CIP rollout?
No, I don't, other than it is absolutely a priority for us to make that investment. $8 million, as you can imagine, is really significant. And so, we're trying to think about how we can contribute as we have, with other projects, including this fire radio project, but also be as aggressive as possible with regard to grant funding. But it is absolutely something that we have talked about and that the mayor continues to prioritize.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Sanchez.
Yes. So with ES&T, do we have, well, there's two parts. We have the fire department, we have the police department. Now, my question is, one, are they both different lingos? And two, do they have representative in ES&T for each department?
I don't understand what you mean by different lingos.
So the police department uses different codes.
Okay, when they speak
on the
on
radios.
radio. Okay, yep.
Right. And the fire department, I'm sure, is completely opposite.
They use different codes.
They do. Okay. Now, is there any representative from each department at ES&T to assist?
Within the communication center?
Yes.
No, we get that information from the fire department and the police department, and we train our dispatchers as such.
So it is the dispatcher that communicates to the police department directly and fire department?
That's correct.
Okay. And now, is there a equal training to each department? Or is there does each dispatch learn the language for both departments? Yes, go ahead, Chief.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just as a point of clarification, the fire department uses plain language. We no longer use 10 codes.
Okay.
The police department does use 10 codes. The fire department uses plain language. So there is no specialized training.
No specialized training. Okay, thank you. And then I would like to make a motion to keep this in committee until we see the rollout in April for the radios in the council.
Motion has been made to postpone this until next month, pending the rollout by ES&T.
Second.
Been made by Sanchez, seconded by Councilman Mitchell. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor on this motion be postponed until next month, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, hearing none, the ayes have it. This item is postponed until next month. Councilman Sanchez?
Yes. So we have no other items for this agenda, so I don't think it's necessary to make a motion. I will, 1 second, I'm just, yeah, there is no other item. So thank you everyone for the presentation and your time. Thank you for your dedication. This was a great meeting. I think we've, got a better understanding on the difficulties and progress that we're having for our departments in the city. So this concludes our meeting. Again, have a good night and thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Emoción.
Help.
Normal.
Human.
I pay attention to my thoughts.
Expreso mis sentimientos.
I know it's okay to be vulnerable.
I get help with stressful situations.
Be the best version of me I can be.
Connect with others. Know my limit.
Be kind to myself.
Feel good about